Evil O.
Hello, this is Wazwo X Wazwo. I want to start it again. That sounded really queer. Hello, this is Wazwo X Wazwo, Evil O, and today I'm again with Puneet Kaushik. And last time he was in Udaipur and we had a very nice conversation. And some people suggested that we continue it and do a part 2. So today I'm at Puneet's studio in New Delhi, which is a very lovely place where he does his work. He just gave me a tour. So how are we going to, we're going to start it off with a question we were asked, correct? So in the last dialogue that we had together, we were asked the question by Laura Williams, and she said, what is the difference between an intervention and a collaboration? So I think that's where we should start maybe. Do you want to start with that? And just
Sure. So for me, intervention would be something where you kind of suggest or give a direction to some kind of work and say this is the way for an artisan or a craftsperson or anybody. And mostly you also find this happening with a lot of gallerists. Gallerists would say, go this way, or this is what art historians or critics would kind of want, or curated show would talk of, is where intervention really works. And a curated vision or a vision of a person taking forward is the way I would say intervention happens. When it comes to collaboration is mostly when there is a lot of give and take. There is a lot of concepts of, or questions asked, and it's a merging or a marriage of two thoughts, of two people or two ideas or two thoughts into one work. And that's how I would see a collaboration.
In my own work, I feel the work that I've done with Rajesh Soni and RVJ, the miniaturists and the photo hand colorists. With RVJ, it was definitely an intervention first because he was doing a specific thing for the tourist market, and then through my intervention, I directed him in a different manner and said, well, let's do this and this instead, because I thought it would be a way of expressing myself, and then it turned out to be more marketable too. And with Rajesh, there was an intervention, but see, he already was a photo hand colorist. He had learned that from his father through his grandfather. So it's not like I steered him in a different direction. It's more like I just gave him a new opportunity. So with Rajesh Soni, I wouldn't think it was so much of as an intervention. It was more of a collaboration. Yeah. And then collaboration can be expanded upon, because we were talking earlier before we started this, because like when I'm working with the backcloth painters for the photographs,
even your models are a part of your collaboration.
Well, yeah, the models are part of the collaboration.
Totally.
The backdrop painters are part of the collaboration. Even Ganpat, my assistant, everybody helps. The people who bring the props, the villagers, everybody. And then it becomes this we have to talk about, a matter of how do you credit that? I don't know if we covered that in the first video or not, the crediting. I don't think we really did.
Think so, yeah.
And I've approached it through just a very personal look at it, really. I mean, I felt from the beginning I had to credit RVJ. In fact, right from the beginning with the miniatures, I had RVJ sign the front, and I was signing the back in the original days. And then later my signature crept onto the front, largely because of gallery pressure, to be honest. People wanted to see my name there. But with Rakesh, it's very much a back and forth on how we do these things. And with Rajesh, I gave him some guidance in the early days about, what colors I wanted to be used and what pigments, and it's important that the tone be kept soft, and it looked like they were just tinted, not like they were so heavily painted and blah blah. And
so what you call that intervention, when you kind of take a direction of explaining as to where you want to, when it's
Well, it's not like he didn't know how to hand color photographs. It was more like giving instructions as to what I expected.
Okay.
But there was some back and forth in that, telling him what colors I sort of preferred, and the softness, and various just minor things really. But Rajesh and I go back and forth a lot, so sometimes when I'm done taking a photograph out at the studio, Rajesh will come to my house and I'll actually question him, and I say, I've got 3 photographs of the same subject and I'm not sure which one is really the best, and he will help me select sometimes. Sometimes he can be very picky because he's got the Indian Rajasthani eye, and he'll say, Chacha, people will like this one for this reason, this is better, this one, no, nobody will like this for that reason. And he'll see little like local things that I don't catch necessarily. But with your collaborators, you don't really credit in the same way, do you?
I actually work with a group of 6 women who kind of sit and do embroidery for me, and that's where all that they do mostly. So I normally do the outline or the basic structure, and I want that to be filled in. So it's more like a background painting or a backdrop of a painting that is being done for me. The main part always comes through me because I'm too scared to spoil the piece when I've reached halfway through and I want to start adding beads to it.
So you see it more because you've given them the design.
Yeah, for me,
You know,
I have
that
given
whole
the
design.
entire thing and I want only those portions to be done. And so I don't know if it's about giving credits, but they definitely know where they're coming from. I always talk about saying that there's a group of people who have.
So the women are working more as technical workers, I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
They're doing the
Like a
technical
framer or
aspect.
anybody, I would say. A
Right.
framer comes and frames works, a stretcher comes and stretches the canvases. Now, if we start crediting, then I don't know where do you make that. It's a great area. You can put a full stop somewhere, or you don't put a full stop somewhere.
Yeah, do you credit the person who's printed your digital photograph?
Exactly.
You know, because I don't have a large printer at home, so you know I go through a agency that does that for me. So, although I do a lot of the adjusting myself at home on the computer, you know, but they also help with that many times when I'm behind. So who all gets credit? I always feel that, you know, you have to credit the people who are really putting in a lot of skill and artistic talent into it and a lot of their own heart and ideas, which
True.
I think both Rajesh, even though Rajesh does not invent the form that he's coloring in, he puts a lot of his heart and his eye in and to bring it to life. He brings those photos to life through his coloration. And Rakesh, you know, I don't have the skill to paint like that, you know. So, I mean, he is the artist who paints. He is the painter. And I'm merely conceptualizing, though I shouldn't say merely. That's a mistake of mine because that takes some work behind that also. To figure
Definitely.
out what you're doing and how you want to present it. And then there's always this dialogue between the way I'm visualizing the miniature to be, and then he'll start and it's like, no, it's going in the wrong direction. It doesn't give the right feel. It doesn't give whatever. There's something painted wrong, and you know, and sometimes Rakesh has to paint things out and like do things. So that's an intervention because I'll say, no, I don't like that. You have to do something. We just had that recently, actually. We were painting a miniature and the sky was supposed to be fully dark all the way down, and he put a light shading at the bottom. But there was a moon in the sky, and I was like, well, what is this light shading? Can't be the moon having set or moonlight because the moon's already up in the sky, so there has to be, the blackness has to come all the way down to the horizon. So it's that kind of thing that I consider like the collaboration.
Also, the palm leaf thing, it's like when I work with palm leaf people, I don't sit and cut the palm leaves into equal strips, I don't stitch them. Now, is that a part of the whole thing where I give them a particular size and that's the size I want? That's my intervention of saying this is where I want, or this is the. I do not give them credit for just making my palm leaf. It's like somebody buying the canvas off the thing. But when I sit and do the etching and I finish the whole work, that's my whole process. So as far as credits is concerned, that's another way of saying it. You know, I get all these different weird big sizes which they don't even do anymore, but I get them customized for myself, these palm leaves, and I just do the entire piece. Now that's something that is entirely done by different group of people. Then it's stitched by different people, it's dried by different people, and sometimes when the work is finished and I want to do a little bit of cut work in between, it goes back to them to do the cut work, but that's again a skilled girl who will sit and do it.
Right.
So
So just before this, I was actually interviewing Anubhav Nath at Oja Arts,
Oh,
and
yes.
I think people will see this before they see this, so I can bring this up. But Anubhav was very much into tribal art, is also contemporary art, what he calls contemporary tribal. You know, Gone painting, Warli painting, all of this, and I respect all of that immensely. I mean, we were talking that in Australia.
but that's universally agreeable because
Right.
most abstract art or contemporary art in many forms of minimalism is also pretty similar to cave paintings or folk or tribal art. Like the Gond art here is something like pointillism, like it goes that way, and then it also talks about what the Aboriginal Australians did. And
Well, one
now,
of his points, why I brought that up is one of his points is that he feels Indian art has been too influenced by the West. Okay, that through the British and through company school paintings and through the educational system as it is in India today, that kids are still basically learning a Western approach to art and appealing to a Western market, and he feels that it's a great tragedy that the native artists, if I can use that word, the tribal artists of India have not been encouraged to develop their own art forms to
but they are doing
in
their
their
art
own
forms.
way,
Aren't they
in their
doing
own
their art
way.
forms? How would you say that?
But they haven't achieved the same prominence as, say, the Aboriginals in Australia have.
Yeah, but
So he feels they're being slighted in some way.
But there's you can't compare India because India has so much of textile and art and everything. It's a kilometer and you have the form change.
Right.
So where do you draw a line and say, okay, a particular thing? So everything, the way it's growing has grown in a form where things are being encouraged or recognized. It's a big thing that today most houses from calendar art or pictures that cut from calendars and would stick have moved on to putting folk and tribal art because they find it more accessible or affordable, and that itself is a big shift. So I think there is a big recognition to this at some level. I wouldn't say, yes, you can't compare it to the international market, but thanks to a lot of Christie's and other organizations, all these auction houses, I would say yes, it has come to a level where even folk and tribal is being recognized internationally.
Right, I would hope that it is.
It is,
It may
it
not
is.
be at the level of the Australian Aboriginal art, but it certainly is growing in appreciation.
You can't compare apples to oranges, so
Right.
so it's a very different thing. What happens here happens here. What happens in Australia happens in Australia.
Right, exactly.
You can't compare that. It's just not fair.
And the other thing I just wanted to touch on, going back a little bit with collaboration and intervention. Now, I'm just beginning to work with our border painter, Shankar Kumawat, who's been doing our borders forever. And his borders have begun lately to sort of creep within the miniature itself. So RVJ is doing a miniature, but some of Shankar's border work is becoming the moon or the lake or something within the miniature. And it's really, really beautiful. So at that point, do I have to give Shankar more recognition? He was always sort of the unspoken of border painter, which, the Karkana system normally was sort of an unspoken individual,
Yeah.
but they often did some of the most elaborate work. So now I'm starting to do a whole new series just with Shankar, where I'm giving him ideas that he can use his border work in new and different ways to create his own series independent of our VJ. But I don't see it so much. I don't see it as my work, like with RVJ and I see it as my work because it's very personal. It's a narrative about myself.
But it's
and
something that you've
conceptualized.
probably done with him also. Initially, you were doing the intervention and you were get to him to a space where he understood what you wanted.
Right.
And once he understood, there was a give and take.
Right.
So it's probably, I've seen one or two works that you showed me in your studio, so I understand what
Right.
this is coming from. It's the initial stage. I think he's also exploring himself.
With Shankar, it's not so much like I'm trying to get him to tell my story. I'm not even.
Not
in
yet.
it.
I think.
I
it's a
know
question of-
never. I don't think I'm trying to get him to figure out ways to develop his
Skillful.
immense skill. Like, okay, how else can we do this to make something that's something new? That's what I'm trying to do. So that's probably more of an intervention than a
I
collaboration.
guess in any
I don't know.
work that you start, the intervention happens, and after a point it stops and it moves on to collaboration because, you can only want till this point, but you want something to move towards this direction, and then you want to speak your language, and sometimes it's somebody else's hand or words, like an art critic or somebody who's writing a little note or something about a show, an art historian or art critic is putting words to what you think. It's again, it's like your words are being, so it's a stage where that comes and that happens. So sometimes the words become more important or sometimes the work becomes more important. I don't know. It's always about doing that thing together. So
And the other thing I want to point out, because I find this a lot in Udaipur with visiting curators who come to town, whatever, and talk to me, and from Europe or especially America. they have very different expectations about crediting. They have Americans, especially Midwesterners, are extraordinarily fair. We're often accused of being like fair beyond reason sometimes. And so there's often the feeling that, oh, well, you should be crediting this person, and you should get their name out there, blah, 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 which I do try to do. But they don't seem to understand there's a huge risk to that also. Because in a place like Udaipur, it's a very mercenary, competitive environment. There's a lot of artists. There's a lot of artists. And there's a lot of artists who have, to be quite honest, no originality. They only are copyists, but they can be good copyists. So they're very good copyists. So Rakesh and I really stay away from a lot of the artists in Udaipur. It's not like in the US or other places where you socialize with all the other artists. It's like we kind of hide what we do away until it's time for the exhibition because we don't want copying. And also I don't want an artist to be, quote unquote, stolen from me. And somebody else to start doing projects with them. But thankfully, they're all very loyal to me. They seem to love and respect me in some way. So it's like, I don't really worry about it. But I feel outsiders sometimes don't understand that aspect of it. They want everything to be sort of open and free, but they don't understand that, there's social issues involved here too.
It's a question of where you are, it's the society you live in, it's the space. Now, if somebody, that's where you talk about Westerners coming in trying to be fair. You coming from a space where if things are not gone your way, or somebody is copying your style, or if it's something happening, if somebody's copyright issues and all those things happen, you will be taken care of. In India, it doesn't happen. You don't have the concept of copyright. It's always, you see a designer work hard, studying from NID or somewhere, coming up with a beautiful design, and soon that is in most export houses or Delhi Hat or on the streets or pavement market. A cheaper version of it is already there. It's a very standard practice. Now, you can be fair, but is that being fair? No. How do you give credit, and where do you stop these lines?
The thing I learned very on in Udaipur, in the tourist bazaar, with the painters who were painting for the tourist bazaar, is that there was no sense of taking credit for their own work. They were often producing en masse. They did not sign their paintings. And they saw no shame in copying because that is part of the miniature tradition. Copying is part of the tradition, making a copy. So, and then when you come from a Western perspective, originality is everything. You want, the most original. It's like, oh my God, this is a fabulous original, inspired, that word, painting. And for them, many times, it's like, oh, well, this is selling in the market. Oh, we should make that too and sell it in the market too. They feel no shame about that because it's a cultural issue.
But that's how most craft is. Even in miniatures today on silk screens, you see so many people making silk screens of it and filling different colors, and it sells for like 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 50 rupees. These little elephants or something, on little screens of miniature style. That's the standard practice because that's how it goes.
And I have had it happen. I've had, I don't know if I should call them collectors, but people who buy art who come from Delhi and Mumbai and they come to Udaipur and the word gets back to me that they go through the tourist bazaar and they say they're looking for RVJ, or they're looking for one of my artists because they're thinking of so they're trying to circumvent me. Not only are they circumventing the gallery, they're also trying to circumvent me. And what they don't understand, and Ganpad explains this very well, my assistant, because he watches and observes. He says even if they do that cha-cha, they're never going to get what they expect because they don't understand how much of my own work goes into it.
Yeah, that's a point that I don't think, I think serious buyers understand, but a lot of people who want to pick up a work and also want to pick up a work that is pretty much imitated or copied in some format of a more recognized style that is there or is respected, is when people cut corners and try and reach some stage to get something similar looking.
And they don't understand when collectors do that too. They don't understand, well, you're basically trying to undercut the market, and in the long run you're not getting the value you think you are. You're actually destroying the value of what's being made. So it's something that really irritates me when people try to do that, but thankfully everybody's quite honest and good with me. make it
Yes,
work.
that's important.
Do you have more to say? I feel like I talked more
No.
than you this time.
It doesn't matter, but that's okay. I think we're done.
Is there anything else you
No,
want to
no, it's
say?
really a long video then.
So this is part 2.
Yeah.
Thank you, Puneet
Thanks. Thank you.
Kaushik. And this is Wazo X Wazo, Evil O from New Delhi. Bye.
Bye.